Hello, everyone, and welcome to the HUBB Stock Market Q&A session on the first Friday of June. And it's National Donut Day here in the US. Here to take your questions is Rob Roy, Chief Market Strategist at Elliott Wave Options. Now, Rob, did you manage to grab a donut today?
I did not, Scott, and I didn't know that. And I was one of those guys that when that light came on, that Krispy Kreme, I was in line, but no, don't touch the donuts anymore. But I've had my share of those warm Krispy Kreme ones. So happy Donut Day, everybody.
All right, for everyone who's tuning in, we have listened to you. We usually do this show after the close on a Friday, but you've asked for it to come a bit earlier in the day, and here we are. Rob, get these questions over to Rob, as many as you can today. We're going to be here for 30 minutes. We're going to answer as many questions as you can shoot down to us in that time slot. All right, don't forget, we'll be back here again at 2 o'clock next week as well, doing the same thing. And don't forget to click on that subscribe and like button as well. Now, Rob, the market, we've talked about this level a lot, this 4,200 level, and it looks like it's got through that 4,200 level. So do you want to have a look at the cues for us?
Yeah, you're right on the S&P, the chart you were talking about there, breaking through that. A little bit of a gap today. I'm not sure I like that too much, but we'll talk more about that in the weekend update a little bit later on. But you're right, the Qs is where it's at, isn't it? With all these AI stocks sprinting to the upside, and there we continue up in the Qs. So yikes, it's getting into kind of nosebleed territory, in my opinion. And last week when we did the update, we talked about beware of a head fake, and I still feel that way. It is a stock picker's market now. Very few stocks are driving the market higher. That's never good when the breadth is so narrow. So this is great. I mean, doing this live session, happy to be here with you and talk stocks and answer questions about individual stocks for people. This is going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's pretty appropriate with the kind of market that we're in. But with the Qs, be a little leery, I think, near term, because they're a bit overbought from the 10-day moving average, and that last part of the move is vertical. I don't like either one of those things. Those of you that have watched us in the past know that those are two of my rules. No security need time frame gets very far away from the 10-day moving average, and when things go vertically up, they often come vertically back down. So I think it's a bit of danger, Will Robinson. If you've been a participant in this, congratulations, but tighten up those stops, in my opinion.
All right, so the questions are flooding in. One of the first questions that came through is from JN on GLD. He wants to look at GLD.
Yeah, the dollar, we talked about this in our insiders meeting last night, which is what we do every Thursday night for our alert subscribers. And we talked about the dollar coming back down, and that put a bid into GLD. But then look what's happened now. So today, not so much. And this is why another one of the things that I talk about is we're getting all the general rules here right off the bat, Scott. But you have to have follow through. And I've always been looking at this 185 level, and some of you kind of called me out when we went above 185 here. We went above 185 here, and we didn't do anything as far as sending out a alert to go long, and that's because the gap up, vertical move, and well, at least vertical move, gap back down, which is worse. And I just don't like this, and I don't chase this stuff, and this is exactly why. So it looked like maybe we were going to try to break back above 185, but we didn't. And we just got to keep an eye on what's going on with the dollar and see from there. I really am a little bit conflicted and confused on why the dollar is so strong, but we just went into a whole bunch more debt, right? So I don't know. I don't get that part, but I still feel like there might be something internationally that we need to pay attention to. But anyway, we'll talk more about that later on. As far as the GLD, looks like we want to come down and test 180 again. So I'm kind of, let's see what happens at 180. Believe it or not, it could be a short if we break below 180, because there's really nothing there to stop it from coming all the way down to this previous wave 4 at 170. And I certainly don't want to look long until we break above 185 with follow through and not a gapped up vertical move. So yeah, a little surprising. Thought maybe the metals were back, and it's like not so fast on the metals. So that's GLD is pretty easy here. You gotta see a meaningful break above 185 or below 180, and then I think you've got to trade either direction there.
Yeah. Lots of questions coming in. It's great. We really appreciate it. Keep them coming in. Japanese aggression. We haven't seen him for a while because we obviously later in the day, but he can take advantage of us today. So he wants to look at Caterpillar, and this is a big move in Caterpillar. You don't usually see this stock move that much in one day. They got a debt deal being done on the green side. So I'm seeing the stock up $16 at the moment. What's the chart looking like, Rob?
Yeah, there it is. Exactly what you're talking about. Another one of those gap ups, and I agree with you. This is not a stock that typically moves like this. It did back in October, but that was, because of the infrastructure bill, et cetera, and that made sense. If they're doing some sort of a debt, I'm not familiar with the news today on Caterpillar, but it seems like normally that's viewed as a negative, right? But obviously not today. So, big bounce from support. And I look at that more than perhaps what the fundamental news is. Obviously, that's driving it. But from a technical standpoint, we had a really nice looking, and you could almost go all the way back to here, but at least through here, there's the descending triangle. Wow, what a good stock to pull up. Scott, good to pick on this one because this is another thing that I talk about a lot. You have a descending triangle, really nicely formed descending triangle, and there's so much misinformation out there on the internet that ascending triangles break to the upside and descending triangles break to the downside. The data does not show that. I've done extensive research on triangles, and they break out, which is the great thing. But regardless of whether it's ascending, symmetrical, descending, they can break either direction. And there you go. There's a descending triangle breaking big to the upside. So perfect example of another one of the things that I talk about a lot. So good call on this one. As far as where we go from here, well, obviously it appears that wave 5 is done. The target would be back to this previous 4. So perhaps there's a little follow through to the upside here, but it's likely going to have a little resistance here at 230. So I don't know how much of this trade is left. Only about 5 more points, but I don't think this is a signal to go hard to the long side yet. I think if you were long now and you got this move, you probably got the greater part of it. And then, we'll watch and see how it handles this 230 level. And if we can break above that with follow through, then I think you look long again. But it's likely going to have a little bit of resistance here. That's the normal LA wave rules. When a wave 5 ends and the extension wasn't more than 100%, you go back to the previous 4. And that's exactly what's going on with the triangle. Boy, classic LA wave stuff here on Caterpillar.
You knew you were going to get this question. NVIDIA. Talking about the volatility, NVIDIA. Everyone's talking about AI. Even I've looked at using ChatGPT this week. Have a look at NVIDIA and talk to us about the volatility, Rob.
I was actually watching not a documentary, but a podcast, because there's like 9 billion of them out there now. But it was Elon talking about ChatGPT exactly, and he's like, it's writing poetry and it's really well constructed, and the human brain cannot process as fast as it can write, and they're creating stories around it, which it's impressive and scary at the same time. And Elon's been a big AI proponent, but when he's saying pump the brakes, we're going too fast, that makes me a little nervous. So yeah, that's interesting. And of course it's changed the course of college, hasn't it? I don't think anybody's going to write a paper on their own ever again. But back to NVIDIA, when we had the big move to the upside here, we got a 1-day pullback from the overbought condition. We're consolidating here, which is constructive as far as potential move higher once this gets consolidated. I talk gaps a lot, but we also talk that you don't know when a gap's going to get filled. It could be a while, and this could be a long time before this gap gets filled. So those of you looking to maybe capitalize on the move back down to fill this gap, I would say when you have a move this strong, you get the real quick pullback, and that's usually a day or two. It was 1 day in this case. We're consolidating here. NVIDIA is not participating today, but it kind of led the way, didn't it? So it was the leader, and just this consolidation still well above the 10-day moving average. I think if you just keep an eye on NVIDIA, once it gets through this, processes all this, if the market is going to continue this upward breakout, which I'm not convinced of yet, we'll see what happens on Monday. But yeah, I think you could start looking long NVIDIA again. But hopefully people caught that move, and maybe we take a little profit here and then watch and see what happens from here, or at least again tighten stops. But I'm just looking for consolidation here. NVIDIA, a slight drawdown maybe, but nothing too significant. So I just wanted to caution people, I don't think this is the time to look for a big move back down to fill that gap. I don't think that's happening.
Sticking with that AI theme, you and I talked a little bit offline on this. There's a stock called MongoDB. MDB is the symbol. AI related. They had blowout earnings last night. Stocks up 20 odd percent, 27%, I think today. Have a look at the chart on that one, Rob.
Yep, there you go, 27%, spot on, Scott. And another one of these big gap ups. See, that's the problem with all of this AI stuff is if you're not there when you get this big move, you go 27% in a day. How much further can it go? And again, I would be looking for some consolidation to a slight pullback here as well with this massive move. But boy, if you have any comments on AI and whether or not it's in your earnings report or in your Q conference afterwards, you have a decent number, then you're finding some money coming behind you, and that's where everything's going. And they're going to be creating an AI ETF here. I saw. I'm not sure when that starts to trade, but that's coming. And Wall Street will figure out a way to make money off the current trends, won't they? But yeah, big gap move to the upside. A little nervous about that gap and where we can go from here. Again, I would look the same type of a move as NVIDIA, maybe a little bit of a pullback at the beginning of the week and then some consolidation. But the money is believing in AI. And so I just don't think we're going to get significant moves lower. But I think the easy money in these stocks is being had right now. And we could get some drifts higher, but I don't think we're going to see any more stuff like this, not from the stocks that have already had these big moves higher. So be careful chasing these because you're going to get stuck with a big IV spike right now. And so if you were to just go buy calls here, you might see in the coming days that even if the stock doesn't pull back, the value of your calls goes down because they've spiked the IV so much on a move like this. So look for spreads if you want to do something. Again, I would say, give it a couple days, let it calm down a little bit, and then look for spreads. Otherwise, you could be right on direction and still lose money, and that's a really frustrating place to be.
Yeah. Another company that had great earnings, and the question that's come through here is Lulu. They actually were up a lot stronger this morning. They were on track to have their biggest move since March 2020, intraday move that is. It's an incredible company and lots of upgrades out there from different broker dealers. What's the chart looking like?
This one's really interesting, Scott. So another good pick here. And so looking here, you can see the big move up, and you're right, the earnings were blowout last night. And the thing is, look what happened here. And I think to go ahead and bring up a chart of the XRT, which is the retail ETF. Retail has been taking it on the chin, and then we had good earnings from Abercrombie and Finch of all people. I thought that stock was long dead, but apparently young people are going back to old school. And so you can see that retail was just having a really rough time. It's bouncing today, probably on the heels of Lulu. It's probably a big part of it. But that move to the downside there and breaking this area of support through here, I thought was pretty interesting. And so Lulu was even getting caught up in that. And we all know that from COVID, when everybody started dressing business casual, they came out with their men's line. Man, the timing on that was perfect right before COVID. And so that bolstered their sales. But I did look at this earnings report, so I am familiar with this one. And they're citing international, especially China. They're seeing a lot of interest from there, and that helped to bolster their numbers. But big reversal from what had been a negative trend on retail. And look again, see, here's an example of when sometimes big gaps can get filled quickly. So we had this big gap up all the way down here with the retail stuff going on, and then back to the gap up again. So I hate all these gaps, can't stand it. I think it makes decision making difficult. And the thing that with Lulu, that was a great move. If you were long Lulu, again, congratulations. But look where we are now. and you can see it turned back from there on the high of the day already today. And we've got some resistance here above with that wave 3. What's this? Somewhere in the 390 area. Well, what was the high so far? At 386, so right around 390. So I don't know that you can chase this one, but it is showing the selectivity of the retail sector here. It's weird. You go from very selective stocks in the tech sector and even very selective stocks in the retail sector. Stocks that you think would be doing well retail are getting hammered. But Lulu is one that you would expect to do well, and they delivered. But again, they're at a point of resistance. I would want to see some consolidation here, and then a break above 390 with follow through. And then I think you probably have that run up to 420. But again, I wouldn't chase this. Beware of that thing that I talked about with the IV spike in the calls right now. Let that calm down a bit. But yeah, pretty interesting. And they were citing the fact that people have carried through with the business casual, even as people are getting called back to work, et cetera. So the trend seems to continue along those lines, and they're a place to shop. They do make great clothes, but gosh, they're expensive.
Yeah, I don't think they fit me, mate.
I hear you.
It wouldn't be a show without looking at Bitcoin, would it, Rob?
I don't think so. And there isn't a whole lot new to say on Bitcoin, but I know everybody always wants to look at it. So let's take a look at it. We are a little bit back up today on the live part. I did look at it before we signed on, and we're right at the 27,000. So up a little bit back above the 50-day moving average, but that's the key. We've been talking about this for how long, Dux? I mean, a couple months here, where 27,000 is the number. And it's just clear as day. Now here we have what we just talked about with the descending triangle pattern on Bitcoin. Which way is this one going to break? It's going to be interesting to see. Do we get any more regional banking news if the Fed does raise one more rate hike, and they've all kind of calmed us down that they're going to pause in June, but perhaps July is being priced in? And so what's that going to do to the regionals? That seemed to create this bid last time. But long story short here, 27,000 is still the number you're watching. The addition of this descending triangle means that whenever it breaks above 27,000 or below, it's probably going to be a significant move. And I would be remiss if I didn't just throw a little caution here of none of this vertical move has been retraced yet. So I'm a little leery of that. But we are, 9 months away now from the next halving, which historically has been a boost and sent Bitcoin roaring the past few times they've done that. So with that on the horizon, perhaps we see an upward breakout here as well. But let it happen is my point, because 27,000 is a little too nervous time for me with the fact that none of this vertical move has been retraced. So just be careful here, but follow the trend if it does break out to the upside with follow through.
One stock that people have asked for here is HIBB, HIBB, HIBBETT Inc. I've never delved in this stock before.
No, not one. I've looked at it before, but not much. Only a couple times over the years. But you can see that. So I'm not really sure what they do. It almost looks like a retail stock, doesn't it? With the way it's been tanking to the downside. We're a little bit oversold here. It looks like it's trying to put a little bottom here. We had a doji yesterday, so at least it stopped the bleeding. These are difficult because this is the old adage of trying to catch a falling knife, right? It's just beware. It's in a wave 3 lower. Let's see, the CCI is what I like to look at for shorter term. Now that has turned up from an area down here, which would be known as an extreme point low. But you can see that those bounces off of that have been very short-lived the past few times. The one right here, the one right here. So just because we're bouncing up here doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a big move higher. The last couple of times it's just been very quick short moves and then back down we go. So perhaps a real short-term bounce, maybe even gets back to 40, back towards that 10-day moving average, but this looks kind of ugly. Volume it looks like the institution's finally bailed here with that kind of volume. Now the positive there is we could be getting to a point. Well, I mean, I'm assuming someone's looking long, but if they're looking short, I think the biggest part of the downward move is done. It looks like the institutions bailed here with the big volume, so they're out. Who's going to drive the stock back higher? So a little bit of a drift from here to the upside, perhaps, or it could drift a little lower. But I think most of this stuff is done, and perhaps a little bit of a short-term bounce and then see from there. But at least maybe the worst part of the downward move is over here. So if you have been short, I think I would tighten those stops there as well. And if you're long, I would look for only a very quick short-term trade. I don't think we turn and run back to the upside here.
Good question here from Harry Toe. He wants to look at XLF, please.
You know, that's a great call, Harry. Or if that's just the part of your stage name there, but the financials. You know, I just talked about if the Fed goes 25 basis points more, does that tip the regional banks, or did the Fed solve this by opening up that financial window, the money window for regional banks that I talked about? So it looks like somebody is a believer today in the financial sector, and that's positive for the market. No doubt about that. Some of the really old school guys will tell you that you need the financials for a sustainable move. Markets can move to the upside for short periods of time, but for a sustainable move, you need the financials leading the way. It's a very old school view, but it's still out there. So those that are looking for this move in the market today to follow through will be encouraged by the fact that the financials are participating today, but we are still in a qualified 5-wave to the downside pattern, so it's not all clear yet. We only have a 47% wave 4 correction here, so we got a long way to go before we get the green light from the financials. It's a good day today, and perhaps we're setting up something, but we're going to have to break above 33 and get high enough to disqualify this 5-wave pattern before I personally could be looking long the financials. I would actually kind of look for maybe bumping its head here and staying in this range between 31 and 33, perhaps for a bit longer. But you know, the markets are going to do what the markets are going to do, and they don't care what I think. So I'm better off just reading what they're doing than trying to figure out what they're going to do. And so that's where I feel on this, that we need a break above 33, far enough to disqualify the 5-wave pattern to the downside, and then perhaps we can look long. But an encouraging day today, no doubt.
All right, we're into the last 6-7 minutes of the show here today. Some great questions. Keep getting them in here. Let's see how many we can get in at the end. One stock that's come up here is Sentinel One, the symbol S. You and I have spoken about this one before, Rob. They had some not so good numbers, and there's quite a few downgrades out there today.
Yeah, this is you know, when you have a thinly traded market like this, you're seeing the rewarding if you say AI and you have decent numbers, but if you miss, you know, it's Katie bar the door. You love that, Scott. But
I do like that one.
There's an example of it right there. And so the positive is the fact that this is a point where it could find some support. If it doesn't find support, yikes, because then who knows where we go. You know, and we could be looking way back down here, going back below 10 to early days, and I think that's probably in danger based on what happened here today. But if it's going to hold, this is a spot. So if you're looking to further short this, I would wait and see if it breaks below 13. Perhaps with this big move lower, it maybe tries to hold here for a couple days at least, because there is some support here at 13. And then if it breaks 13, then I think you've got some more room to the downside. Once again, when you have a move like this, I don't expect this to turn around and run back up right away. So this is something that we would look at more for perhaps a trading range from here when you see something like that occur. But yeah, pretty ugly day, but at support if it's one of your favorite stocks.
Another one, a question that's coming for is 3M, which the symbol is quite easy on that one.
Yeah.
They've got a settlement or potential settlement lined up for the PFAS side of it. At least $10 billion settlement. but this, look at what the stock did on the back of that.
Yeah, that's been a long time coming. Obviously, the market likes that move. Man, it seems like there's some exaggerated moves today as well. But that's what happens in thinly traded markets. You get exaggerated moves. And people look at the VIX, and the VIX is right now at 1462. And they're like, why are we getting all these volatile moves and the VIX is so low? Because the VIX is now on the S&P 500, and all these moves are happening on very select stocks. Again, a great reason why we're here doing this live. This is a lot of fun doing these live stock picks here. But the VIX is not an indication of what's going on individual stocks, and I just don't think the VIX is a great indicator along those lines anymore. I used to like it when it was on the OEX. But we did hit this wave 5 target smack in the middle. That's a 50% extension there on the wave 5, dead in the middle of the forecasted tap box. So the HUBB software nailing this move here with LA Wave, best LA Wave software that exists on the market, in my opinion. So nice bounce from that, and probably we'll get a little bit of follow through. The likelihood is that we go back to this previous 4. Problem is, it's not too far from here. So I think 3M may follow through with a little bit, but then once we get up there to 107, 108, then we're going to have to wait and see what happens from there. But obviously the market cheering that settlement today for sure. I haven't looked at that stock in a long time. That's why this is fun. We get some unusual stocks.
All right, the last one we're going to look at before we wrap up, it's just come through, is on Dish. And Dish is up about 16% today. Amazon's in talks to offer a mobile service to US Prime members. Now, I feel like this news came out last week and the stock moved aggressively on it. Obviously got confirmed, or not confirmed, they're still in talks, but look at that move there today.
Yeah, well, when you're dealing with a $6 stock, you move up 96 cents and it's over a 15% move. The problem is that we tapped the 50-day moving average on the high. That's the royal blue line. We got a little bit of resistance here around 8, but depending on how that plays out, you've got somebody like Amazon trying to help them out a little bit. I kind of thought, this stuff with all the streaming services, Dish, DirecTV, what's the future for things like that? And it just seems like the market is shrinking for them now. But who knows? Maybe they obviously Amazon thinks there's a way to capitalize on it, or maybe they're just taking advantage of I don't know, whatever the deal was. I was wondering if perhaps they got some ownership out of it with a really low stock price. But again, gap up, decent move. Problem is it's bumping its head at resistance. So for me to go long, and maybe it will, I got to see it break above that 50-day moving average, get above 8 with follow through. And if this is a hope for the future, who knows? That this one, if it breaks above that, could be a good middle term long type of trade. But let it do it first. Let it get above 8 with follow through first, and then you can look there. But it certainly looks like that put a stop to the downward move for sure.
All right, Rob, listen, thank you so much. I think it's been great. Looked at some fantastic stocks. Some great questions came in. What do you think?
I thought this was awesome. Yeah, and that's the great thing about this, right? When we have the viewers come in and we do get the NVIDIAs and all those, but then we get some stocks that we don't look at all the time in general. So this is a lot of fun. I look forward to doing this with you each and every week, Scott. And so start watching for us. Have your stocks ready. This was great.
Yeah, everyone watching, don't forget to tune back in again 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time next week. Tell your friends, tell your family. Rob's going to be here to answer all your questions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
Look forward to it.